I wasn't supposed to understand a single word she said. That's what she believed. That's what they both believed. But the moment I heard her whisper those words, soft, careful, almost rehearsed, something inside me went cold. Not angry, not yet. Just still, like the world had paused to let me listen more closely, because she wasn't just speaking German. She was hiding something in it, and it involved our child. I've always believed that love isn't loud. It's quiet. It's in the small things. The way someone remembers how you take your tea, the way they reach for your hand without thinking, the way they look at you when they think you're not paying attention. That's how it was with Alina. We met 7 years ago in a bookstore cafe tucked between 2 old buildings. She was sitting by the window, sunlight catching in her hair, reading something in a language I didn't recognize at the time. I remember thinking she looked peaceful, like someone untouched by the chaos of the world. I didn't know then how wrong I was. She told me later it was German poetry. She had lived in Germany for a few years as a child because of her father's work. She spoke the language fluently, but rarely used it here. Feels like a different version of me, she once said, smiling faintly. Back then, I thought it was beautiful. Now, I'm not so sure. Our life together was simple, predictable in the best way. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. I worked long hours, and she managed our home with a kind of quiet strength I admired. She had recently started working again, part-time, at a consulting firm downtown. She seemed happier after that. More alive, at least that's what I told myself. When she told me she was pregnant, I remember the exact way her voice trembled. We were in the kitchen. She was holding a mug, but her hands were shaking so much that the tea inside rippled like water in a storm. I think we're going to have a baby. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then everything rushed in at once, joy, fear, disbelief. I pulled her into my arms, and she buried her face into my chest. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment everything becomes real. And for a while, it was perfect. We talked about names, about the future, about what kind of parents we'd be. She would rest her head on my shoulder at night, guiding my hand to her stomach, even though it was too early to feel anything. "You'll be a good father," she whispered once. I believed her. God, I wanted to believe her. But slowly, things began to shift. Not in obvious ways. Nothing dramatic. Just small things. The kind you brush off because love makes you patient. She started taking more calls from work. Late ones, quiet ones. She would step into the other room, closing the door gently behind her. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Then I noticed the language. German. Soft, controlled, almost careful. When I asked her about it once, she smiled lightly. Some clients are from Berlin. It's just easier. It made sense. Or at least it sounded like it did. So I let it go. What she didn't know was that I understood every word. Not because I had told her. I hadn't. Years ago, before I met her, I had taken German classes. Not seriously at first. It was just something to pass the time. But I stuck with it longer than I expected. Long enough to understand. Long enough to follow a conversation. I never mentioned it because, well, it never seemed important. Until it was. The first time I really listened, I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. She was in the living room. I was in the hallway, about to walk in when I heard her voice shift. It was softer than usual, almost intimate. "Es ist noch zu früh," she said. "It's too early." I paused. Ich weiß nicht, ob bereit ist. I don't know if he's ready. My chest tightened, but I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe she was talking about me becoming a father. Maybe she was worried. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. Darf nichts erfahren. He must not find out. Silence filled the space around me. My hand hovered just inches from the doorframe. I should have walked in. I should have said something. But I didn't. Instead, I stepped back. Quietly, carefully, like someone who had just realized the ground. Beneath them wasn't as solid as they thought. After that, everything changed. Not on the surface. We still laughed. We still ate dinner together. We still talked about the baby. But inside, I was listening, watching. Every word she spoke in German felt heavier now. Every late-night call carried a weight I couldn't ignore. And there was one name that kept coming up. Daniel, her boss. I had met him once. Polite, well-dressed, the kind of man who smiles just enough to seem trustworthy, but not enough to reveal anything real. I remember the way he looked at her that day. Not inappropriate, not obvious. Just familiar. Too familiar. One evening, she told me she had to stay late at work. Deadline, she said, kissing my cheek. Don't wait up. Her eyes lingered on mine for a second longer than usual, like she was searching for something, or hiding it. I nodded, smiled, told her to be safe. But the moment the door closed behind her, something in me shifted. Not anger, not yet, just a quiet decision. I waited 10 minutes. Then I picked up my keys. The office building was still lit when I arrived. Not unusual. It was that kind of place. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. From across the street, I could see her through the glass walls on the second floor. She wasn't working. She was standing near the window. With him, Daniel. They were talking. Close, too close. And then she said something in German. I couldn't hear her through the glass, but I didn't need to, because I already knew how her voice sounded when she was trying to keep something hidden, and the way she looked at him. It wasn't professional. It wasn't distant. It was the same look she used to give me. I don't remember how long I stood there. Minutes. Maybe longer. Long enough for the truth to start taking shape in my mind. Long enough for the silence between us to feel intentional. That night, she came home later than usual. She slipped into bed beside me, careful not to wake me. But I was awake. I always was now. Her hand rested lightly on her stomach. And then, in a voice so soft I almost missed it, she whispered something in German. Ist nicht sein Kind. I felt my heart stop, because I knew exactly what that meant. And in that moment, everything we had built together began to crack. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just lay there, staring into the darkness, listening to her breathe, repeating those words over and over in my mind. It's not his child. And for the first time, I realized the truth wasn't just hidden in a language. It was hidden in her. And I was about to find out just how deep that truth really went. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. I lay there beside her, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing, while my mind replayed those words again and again. Ist nicht sein Kind. It's not his child. Each time I repeated it, it felt less like a sentence and more like a fracture. Something sharp, buried deep, slowly spreading through everything I thought I knew. But I didn't confront her. Not yet, because anger is loud. And I had learned something important over the years. Truth reveals itself best in silence. Morning came like nothing had changed. She smiled at me in the kitchen, her hair slightly messy, her voice soft. Did you sleep well? I looked at her for a moment longer than usual, studied her face. The same face I had trusted, the same eyes I had built a future around. And I smiled back. Yeah, I said quietly. I did. It was the first lie I told her. The next few days I became someone else, not outwardly. I still kissed her goodbye, still asked about her day, still rested my hand on her shoulder when she passed by. But inside, I was watching, listening, waiting. She didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't want to. The calls continued. German, always German. But now, I didn't just listen to what she said. I listened to how she said it. The pauses, the hesitations, the softness in her tone whenever she spoke to him. Daniel, it wasn't just familiarity. It was something deeper, something that didn't belong in a marriage. One evening, she left her phone on the table while she stepped into the shower. It buzzed once. Then again. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't want to look, but because I knew that once I did, there would be no going back. Finally, I reached for it. The screen lit up. A message, in German, from Daniel. Wir müssen bald eine Entscheidung treffen. We need to make a decision soon. My chest tightened. I scrolled up. I shouldn't have, but I did. Fragments of conversations. Half-finished thoughts. Words that felt carefully chosen, but not careful. Enough. Ahnt nichts. He suspects nothing. Ich kann so nicht weitermachen. I can't keep going like this. Es wird kompliziert wegen des Kindes. It's getting complicated because of the child. I stopped there, because I didn't need to read anymore. When she came out of the shower, I was sitting exactly where she had left me, her phone back on the table, my expression calm. Everything okay? She asked, drying her hair. Yeah, I said. And for the first time, it wasn't a lie. Because something inside me had settled. Not peace, but clarity. A few nights later, she told me Daniel had invited us to dinner. A small thing, she said casually, just to celebrate the team finishing a big project. I looked at her. There was a flicker in her eyes. Nervous. Careful. Sure, I replied. And I meant it. The restaurant was quiet, elegant, the kind of place where conversations are soft and smiles are practiced. Daniel greeted us like an old friend. Warm handshake, easy charm. But now that I understood the language, I could finally understand him. Not just his words, his silences, his glances. Dinner started normally. Work talk, light jokes, the kind of conversation that fills space without meaning anything. Alina laughed more than usual. Daniel watched her when she did, and every now and then, they slipped. Just for a second. A glance too long, a pause too heavy. A sentence started in English and finished in German. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I couldn't follow. At one point, Daniel leaned slightly toward her and said quietly, Wir können das nicht länger hinauszögern. We can't delay this any longer. She froze. Just for a moment. Then she smiled, forcing a laugh, glancing at me quickly. I met her eyes and held them. Not accusing, not angry, just present. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur, but by the time the check arrived, I knew exactly what I was going to do. As we stood to leave, Daniel turned to me. It was good to finally spend time together, he said politely. I nodded. Then for the first time, I answered him in German. Fluently, clearly. Ja, I said, my voice calm. Es war wirklich aufschlussreich. Yes, it was really enlightening. The silence that followed was immediate, heavy, complete. Alina's face drained of color. Daniel didn't move, didn't speak. Because in that one sentence, everything had changed. I looked at her. Really looked at her. No anger, no raised voice, just truth. You should have told me, I said quietly, in any language. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Then I turned to him. And you, I added, just as calm, should have known better. No scene, no shouting. Just silence, the kind that says more than anything else ever could. We drove home without speaking. The space between us felt unfamiliar now, like sitting beside a stranger wearing someone I used to love. When we walked inside, she finally broke. I was going to tell you, she whispered. I didn't respond, because that sentence, it didn't mean anything anymore. She stepped closer, tears in her eyes. It's not what you think. I shook my head gently. It is, I said. And for the first time, my voice carried something sharp beneath it. Not anger, not even sadness, just certainty. She sank into the chair, her hands trembling. I didn't know how, she admitted. How to what? I asked quietly. Her voice cracked. How to tell you the baby might not be yours. Might. The word hung in the air. Fragile. Useless. I nodded slowly, as if she had just confirmed something I already knew, because she had. I'll get a test done, she said quickly. We can fix this. I let out a small breath. Not a laugh. Not quite. Fix? I looked at her one last time. At the person I had trusted more than anyone. The person who had built a second life in another language. Some things aren't broken, I said softly. They're just revealed. That night I didn't sleep in our room. Not out of anger, but because something fundamental had shifted. Something that couldn't be undone with explanations or apologies. And as I lay there staring at the ceiling, I realized something I hadn't before. The betrayal wasn't just the lie. It wasn't even the possibility that the child wasn't mine. It was the fact that she had spoken an entire truth, right beside me, in a language she believed I would never understand. And now that I did, there was no going back.